I really thought the problem was that I just had too much to do. But when I actually tracked my time, that's not what I found at all. And the part that surprised me the most wasn't even how long things took. It was something I was doing all day without really noticing it. And what's interesting is this is literally the kind of thing I do all day long. I'm a behavior analyst, so I spend a lot of my time looking for patterns in behavior. And I still didn't see this in how I handled my own work. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what I found when I tracked my time for a week and how you can do the same thing without turning it into a whole big project so that you can actually see where your time is going and stop using your evenings to catch up. I'll show you exactly how to do that in just a minute. But first, let's look at what I thought I was going to see, because I think you might suspect the same thing about your own time. From the outside, it really did look like I just had too much to do. I'd wake up in the morning, make my coffee, open my laptop, and tell myself I was just going to get a head start on the day. And then somehow, while my husband was relaxing on the couch, I'd be opening my computer again at night, trying to catch up. And the frustrating part was I was busy all day, but I never felt done. No matter how much I worked, there was always more waiting for me. And when you're in that cycle, it really does feel like the only explanation is that there's just too much to do. And honestly, at first, it kind of looked that way. I was working a lot. There wasn't some huge chunk of time where I was just doing nothing. But as I started looking a little closer, there was something I hadn't been seeing at all. I was underestimating how long things actually took. Not a little, like significantly. I was planning my week like most things were quick, something I could just fit in and check off. But when I tracked it, those same things were taking much longer than I expected. And what that meant was I was committing to work that didn't actually fit into my week. So before anything else, my week was already set up in a way that couldn't work. But even that wasn't the part that surprised me the most, because once I stopped looking at how long things took and started paying attention to how I was actually moving through my day, there was one pattern that showed up over and over again, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. What I started to notice was how often I was switching between tasks. I'd open my email, respond to one message, then remember I needed to finish a session note, so I'd switch to that. And then a text would come in, then I'd think about something I needed to do for my business. Then I was back to the email. And it didn't feel chaotic in the moment. It just felt like I was being productive. But when I stepped back, it looked very different. I wasn't actually staying with anything long enough to finish it. I was just switching to whatever caught my attention next. Nothing was getting my full attention for very long, and almost nothing felt finished. And the more I watched it, the more I realized this wasn't happening a few times a day. It was happening all day long. I wasn't actually working in a focused way anymore. I was just switching tasks constantly. And this is the part I didn't understand at first, because it wasn't really about my schedule. It took me a minute to see this, but when I looked a little closer at the moments when I was switching, there was a pattern. It usually happened when I was working on something that felt harder to start or harder to stay with. Things like writing a treatment plan or working on a CEU course, things that were bigger, less defined, and didn't give me that quick sense that I had finished something. So instead of staying with those tasks, I'd switch to something easier or faster. I'd answer an email, reply to a message, do something quick that I could just check off my mental to-do list. And in the moment, that felt productive. But over the course of a day, it meant I was spending most of my time on things that were easy to start instead of the things that actually mattered. And that's why it felt like I was working all day, but not really getting anywhere. It wasn't just that I had a lot to do, it was how I was moving through the work itself. And this is also why when I finished the time audit, I didn't just change my schedule. I changed how I made decisions during the day. I'll show you what that looked like in a minute. But first, there's one thing I want you to understand about what this did not fix. The time audit didn't suddenly make things easier. There are still parts of my work that I find hard. For me, that's things like writing the treatment plans and creating CEU courses. Those didn't suddenly become easier to start or easier for me to finish, but I did understand something differently. Part of why those tasks felt so hard wasn't just the task itself, it was how big they were. And once I saw that, I stopped trying to force myself to just focus more. And I started breaking those tasks down into smaller pieces. So instead of having a goal to work on the treatment plan, I turned it into something much more specific. And that made it easier to actually start. I'll talk more about exactly how I do that in another video, but that was a really important shift for me. I realized this is actually really simple. So if some of this sounds familiar, I want to show you exactly to do it in a way that's simple and doesn't take much time because this doesn't need to be complicated. The way I did this was very simple. I used a single sheet of paper each day and broke my day into 10-minute intervals. Across the top, I had categories like correspondence, documentation, sessions, administrative tasks. And every 10 minutes, I just made a check mark in whatever category I was working in. And that's it. No detailed tracking, no trying to capture everything. To make it easier to remember, I used a simple interval timer. So every 10 minutes, it would just remind me to mark it down. And I did this for a full week because one day can look really different from the next. But my week usually has a pattern. If your days often look the same, you could probably do this for just 3 days to see where your time is going. The goal here isn't precision, it's visibility. And if you miss a few intervals or forget to track something, don't start over. Just estimate and keep going because it's really easy to turn this into something that you quit halfway through. You just need enough information to start seeing a pattern. The only thing I did to make sure I finished it was I told myself if I did this for the full week, then I could buy myself a new book. And honestly, that helped me more than I expected. And once you go through this, you'll probably see things you didn't expect because most of us have never actually looked at our time this way. And when you see it clearly, it becomes a lot easier to understand why your days feel the way they do. Not just that you're busy, but what's actually happening inside your day. And from there, you can start making small changes that actually fit your work. Not someone else's routine, not a system that looks good on paper, but something that works with the way your days actually go. Because the goal isn't to track your time forever, it's just to get clear enough that you're not guessing anymore. And once you can see your week clearly, you can finally start changing it. And one of the biggest things this showed me was why I kept putting off certain tasks, especially the bigger ones. So in the next video, I'll walk you through exactly how I started breaking those down so they were actually possible to start and finish during the day.